All right. Good morning, everyone. So that was a nice introduction from Alexa. So my name is Max Amordeluso. I have a really cool job. I speak about Alexa all day long, every day of the week, including Saturday. So it's really nice to share this time with you. I'm a part of the Amazon Alexa team that has launched Alexa Skills Kit a few years ago here in Europe as well. And I'm going to talk to you about a few things today. So I will do my best to make it worth your while to invest one weekend to hear people talking. And I'll discuss a few things about skills. This is what I know best of the Alexa world. And I'll also give you a couple of pointers on how to design voice experiences on Alexa, and a few additional considerations on related topics. So with that, this is the agenda. This is the high-level list of themes that I'll cover today. And but let's start first by raise a hand. So I want to make sure that I understand how many of you have designed, created, and/or published an Alexa skill. Okay, all right. So just to set the stage. So I'll be gentle with some concept. I will not assume that you have a pre-existing knowledge of what an Alexa skill is. So let's start from the beginning. What is Alexa and why have we be doing this? I'm a huge sci-fi fan. I've always been. I grew up in a different century, like hopefully the majority of you. And I've always been enamored by the phenomenal predictions of science fiction. So Alexa, it fits really in this concept of implementing what used to be just a fantasy. So let's start with this evergreen movie. So this is a 40 years old, now more than 40 years old movie about the crew of the Starship Enterprise that goes back into the future, into the 80s. Okay, so check this out.
Computer, please. Computer? Computer? Ah. Hello, computer.
Just use the keyboard.
So this is used to be, just funny. And this movie was created in 1986. So this was just a gag by then. It was just something, to make people laugh about the marvels of being able to connect, to interact with a computer, with the voice, like with the computer on the bridge and around the Enterprise. So, but today, this is possible. And it has been possible for a few years. And this is cool. It's at least if you are into sci-fi or into innovation as a concept, it is cool already for that. But it's also even cooler for third-party and developers and brands and people that want to build with this, because you can build with this technology today. So I just want to make sure that this is clear. That's the reason why I'm here. This is basically my main mission, just to make sure that people understand that this is a technology that can be partaken and leveraged to create your own experiences for your customers, your listeners, your users, wherever they are, and just to implement your innovation, your creativity with this set of tools. So let's check this out. Now, how did we get to Alexa? We got to Alexa, as I said, like mainly inspired by this omniscient and everywhere available computer from Star Trek, but three things made it possible. So the first thing was the realization and the phenomenal discovery that if you feed big data sets to machine learning algorithms, phenomenal things happen. You can predict, you can forecast, you can actually look into the future to some extent, right? And that was the first thing. The second thing was obviously the cloud. You can probably appreciate it, the level of complexity that something like Alexa takes. The level of virtually unlimited computing power, virtually unlimited storage that something like the cloud, for us, Amazon Web Services, is necessary to make Alexa work. That was factor number two. Now, the third, most important, is that voice is natural. So voice is what we use. This is something that is natural to us. We don't have to learn. We don't have to think about using it. Sometimes we should think about using it more, but that's a different story. The point is that we decide to speak and we just do it. And in Alexa, we are leveraging exactly that natural speaking component that humans leverage. Now, from a point of view of the evolution of the interfaces, so why do we think that this technology is the most important current technologies to interact with machines? Because we tried other things. And some of them worked well for certain purposes, but they got, let's say, surpassed or complemented by other technologies. So we see, just to pick one, the mobile revolution, the mobile generation. We cannot imagine a future without these devices in our pockets, without these wearables, without technologies that we use. This is our technologies. This is our access to the world. And it's very important, but it's not everything. There are certain things that actually are better with voice. Think about what you are unable to use your hands, or when you are unable to look at a screen. You're doing something else, but you still want to have that information. That's where voice kicks in. And I'm not saying the voice is great, is the solution for everything. Absolutely not. Think about an Excel spreadsheet narrated to you by Alexa. Not that good. The CX on that one would be absolutely, let's say, less than ideal. But the point is that each one of these things that we tried, each one of these interfaces that we tried, represented a large numbers of opportunities, commercial opportunities, ways to being able to create startups based on that technology. Now, I have peppered this conversation that we're gonna have for the next hour or so with a few videos, so that just to deliver my points better. So let's check this out. This is a video of a product that is not made by Amazon. It uses Alexa voice service, but there is a couple of considerations here that I want to share with you. So let's check this out, and then we'll talk about it.
Alexa, play morning music.
You might be the only one who's ever seen the light of day.
Alexa, tell me a sloth fact.
Sloths grow up to be about 27 inches in size.
There was neither day nor dawn. The hours they kept a rolling on. I walked without a light
Alexa,
to guide me.
add bananas to my shopping list.
Okay.
So what's the biggest take here from this video? The biggest take that this is personal technology, at least in this specific case, but it still does not isolate you from the world. Do you see that super cool movie that was being shot next to the bus? She was able to see because she was not deep into her own technology, her own space like the rest of the bus. I think this is super important because it shows us this component of this great technology that mobile devices have brought to us, but is individual even in social settings, versus voice, which is communal by its own definition. We speak and people around us hears, right? If everything works. Now, the point another important point that I want to deliver is that Alexa is available in several languages. We see here the latest. And for any one of these languages and marketplaces, developers from virtually anywhere in the world can create voice experiences. So let's say that you are in Poland and you do have some value for Japanese customers. You have a specific idea for an Alexa skill that will delight Japanese customers and will generate business for you. You can create it. You can create that experience in Japan, in Brazil, in the US, in Spain, in Italy, wherever, right? Because that is accessible to you. So let's talk about Alexa skills. So Alexa skills are the voice equivalent of mobile apps. That's all they are. So these are applications that you create and then you make available into the public domain of Alexa users for your users to partake. But how does that work? So let's say, let's give a little representation here. Everything starts with a human. So that is the user on that side. The user will utter a command into Alexa. The command has to be preceded by a wake word, otherwise Alexa will not be listening. So the wake word will be picked by a wake word detector that resides on the device around here. This specific, which looks like an echo, the real echo has an array of microphone, has a 6 microphone around, and then one on top, just for far field recognition capabilities. And then when that audio is picked, is streamed up into the cloud to Alexa for being parsed. So there are several fairly complex modules inside engines, inside Alexa, ASR, automatic speech recognition, NLU, natural language understanding. They have the purpose of extracting the meaning out of that command that Alexa got. Because if we step back a second and we normalize what we're talking about here, we're talking about a computer that understands humans. A computer is missing something, well, it's missing a lot of things from human-to-human conversation. If you and I talk, you have a lot of things. You have context, you have experience. You can look at my body language. You have context. Computers have none of these things. So they only have that payload. So you have to imagine and appreciate the complexities of how to figuring out exactly what the humans meant. And we mean a lot of things in a lot of different ways. So going back to that specific engine, the output of that process that happens in the cloud is an intent. So an intent is nothing but a JSON payload that is passed back to your service, to your Lambda function that does the processing that you have created. That's where it resides, the logic that you create, and then sends back a response. A response is then sent back as an audio or as a visual. So, but let's check a little animation here that is going to explain it even further. Or not. Well, hopefully I explained it clear enough. So the point was, I don't know why that is not going, but the point was just to traverse, as I just did, all these steps. And what you are going to do as a developer is create two things, mainly, depending on the type of skill, and we'll see in the next slide. But you create two things. You create an interaction model, and you create the backend, the logic behind it. So the interaction model, if some of you have developed application, let's say graphical applications before, this is the equivalent of the GUI, the graphical user interface, which in this case is called voice user interface. This is your front end. This is what gets first matched with what the user is saying. Now, similarly to previous application patterns that you might have created, there is a backend. The backend has to be some sort of computing resource. In this case, we do have, or my personal preference and the Alexa developers community preference seems to be an AWS Lambda function, because that is serverless computing, is pay-as-you-go, is tightly integrated with identity and access management framework, and is also part of the console. Recently, we have modified the console to embed the what we call Alexa hosted skill capability. So you do have the backend directly from the console. Now, if you want to use Lambda as a backend for your skill, you can simply click a button, it's a tab, and you would create automatically the interaction model in the same place where you create your function. Now, as I mentioned before, two main types of skills. There is a custom skill. This is where you create that interaction model entirely. So custom means that you do have the floor. This is a blank slate. This is everything you want to create. It's open for you. If you have some API that you want to surface, this is how you would do it. You will have full control of the customer experience. Conversely, on the other side, you have API skills. You have a set of APIs that make your life easier, that make your development quicker, that of course are going to constrain your control of the CX as a cost, but as a benefit will make it real quick for you to implement what your customer wants for that specific use case. Now, and the difference, of course, that in Alexa skill parlance, the interaction model you have to build in a custom skill, while in an API is built for you by the API. Now, the four main types of pre-built interaction model that we do have are, you can read them, are the smart home, the video skill, the flash briefing, and the music skill. So the smart home, you can say things like, Alexa, turn on the living room. So there is a set of primitives of actions that is very likely your users or any user of that specific smart home set of actions would want to use, and they're there for you. Similarly to the flash briefing is a way of creating a short snippet of time-sensitive information and short content that your users will want to consume quickly, between 2 and 5 minutes as a best practice. Similarly, you can create music skills or video skills with some of these recurring action already created for you. Now, there is a lot of skills out there. We recently touched on Wednesday, and we announced that we passed 100,000 skills available through the Alexa Skills Kit. But this is, as we like to say in Amazon, it is day one. If you decide to enter to space, it is truly the beginning of something that is revolutionizing the way that we interact with machines. Keep in mind that this technology makes sense. It still needs to be improved a lot. That is clear, because the way we gauge these machines, the way we speak with Alexa, is in a very anthropomorphic way. So we give personal pronouns to Alexa. We refer to her or to him, depending on what voice has been selected. But the point is that the bar that we are using to judge Alexa is the human-to-human conversation, and it's a machine. So lots of work to do remains to do out there. But this is here to stay. And one indicator is if you look at kids, for example. Kids are using this technology where they have it available really, really easily, naturally. We have 3 kids that have been using in our house. They've been using Alexa-enabled devices, mostly Echo devices for a few years, and for them it's natural. They try now to speak with things, sometimes with just voice if they're stuck, right? So this is amazing. So this tells you that we are onto something that is here to stay. Your customers, either present or future customers, will want this because this is perceived as the modern way to interact, and it's quite convenient. Now, let's switch and let's go into how do we design voice experiences that make sense. How do we actually start with this? One of the main themes of today's talk is indeed to speak about situational design. Now, if we want to create something that adapts to human, it's a pretty daunting task because a person can pretty much say anything they want when they negotiate with a device like this. Because again, even if we start by, oh yeah, this is just a machine, I have to maybe speak a little specifically or a little deliberately, sooner or later we'll revert back to speaking extremely natural to it. And in a natural way, it will also come out the way we naturally speak. I speak differently than you. English was not my first language. I speak different than pretty much every person in the whole world, as you do, right? And think about that enormous variety that you have to account for. As voice designers, the burden is gonna be on you. So how do you figure out how to handle this? You can handle it with a diagram, right? You can diagram out all the possible relationships that your skill is going to take. A lot of people have tried that way. It occasionally works. More often than not, does not necessarily work as the designer wanted. Because just for one simple reason, can you identify what's missing from this flow? I can't. But one thing, for example, that is missing for sure is a conversation. How do you mimic that exchange of conversation? Conversation can take an infinite number of paths. As a designer, how do you account for that? It's a big problem, is the problem of voice designers everywhere. So one of the things, and don't get me wrong, some of that, for certain type of skills, for certain of simplistic or simple experiences in exchange, that approach might still work. But if you want to do really rich experiences that delight the user and make suspend that sense of reality that sometimes hold us back, you have to create more natural experiences. So one way is that to use situational design. So this is something that was created by some evangelists in the US by observing a lot of design sessions and by participating and running a lot of skills. The core interaction of situational design is the turn. You design a turn, you design many turns, and then Alexa will put them together while she speaks with the user. So this is the core idea. You design a turn, you think about, you use the process that I will show you, and you design as many turns as your scenarios will call for, and then Alexa will put them as needed during the relationship with the user together. So let's see how that works. Each one of the turns has an utterance, a situation, a response, and a prompt. Now, the way that I will handle this, the fil rouge that I will use to speak about situational design is a fictional skill. Actually, it's not fictional; it exists, but it's a skill that helps college-age students to select a college. So it's a pretty daunting period of one's life. You have the world open to you. You have the world of universities or colleges open to you. And how do you select? So this is the context. This is the base assumption that by figuring out, by exploring, by researching colleges, things will get better and a user will know exactly what he or she wants. Now, this skills shows a few things. So it's called the college coach. I originally thought of picking one of you just to play the user, and I would be playing Alexa, but let's not do that. So you can read. Now, what's the takeaway here? We start from, obviously, from the top left that you have. Alexa, open College Coach. Welcome to College Coach. There is a certain explanation of how the skill used, and then there is a prompt. Now, the user says, I don't know. That's the whole point. Why, I just don't know now. Okay, so let me help you with that. Let's try to define to limit a little bit the scope. There is a state. First question to delimit the scope. Colorado. That's cool. So, and then there is an assignment that is being given. Come back tomorrow. So, few things here. Obviously, there is a utilitarian approach, which is absolutely crucial. If you design any skill, the most important thing you have to remember, the first thing is that you have to do something for the users. You have to do something. This is not a channel to pitch information that are not requested by the user. You have to provide value by giving them what they want. If they come to your skill to get help on how to select a university, do exactly that. No more, no less. Remember that value that you have to provide to users. This is crucial. Or your users will simply disengage. They will go away, they will move to a different skill, to a different something, and they will very likely not come back. So remember to stick to what they want from your skill. Now, we also see a second element that is extremely important. There is the beginning, there is a spark of creating daily engagement here. Daily engagement is another very important thing for your skill. This is how you will make skill that become important for users. Make them part of their daily routines. Make them part of what they check in the morning, what they go back. I personally like to check a few things every day. I check the score on the game I might be playing, or the stock, the current value that the stock had, or information that are relevant for me. I have a daily routine. If you enter in that daily routine, that's how you actually create attachment. You attach yourself to users, and that's how that engagement will produce success for your skill, which will translate also in monetary success, of course, if you monetize that experience. Now, let's move on into this. And each one of them, if you notice, each one of these three set of boxes, it's a turn, okay? Now, what are we seeing here in the second, in the first set of boxes? Alexa Open College Coach, this is another time. This is not the very first time that a user opens it. There is a memory being kept in the skill. The skill remembers that there's been 5-day streak of usage for this skill. And there is a personalization there. Wow, 5 times in a row, great work. That's reward. It seems silly, but that's a rewarding experience. Alexa knows me. She's paying attention to me. That's what you have to provide to your users. This is absolutely crucial. Now, there is a continuation of the daily tasks, and there is examples of the daily engagement experience. And what's important here, let me see if this actually works. I discovered throughout the years doing events that there is 2 types of screens. The one that does not take the one that takes pointers and the one that does not. Look at this, fantastic, I love it. So, but the point that I wanted to show you here, what's important from this slide, is something called out-of-domain requests. You are creating the skill, you have in your mind, you're providing the top value, you have created this great interactions, but don't fall into the trap of diagramming or flow diagramming, because then it's going to be something that you script for the users, but it's not. This is going to be user initiative. That's what the value is going to be. In the third turn, we see, at the end of the second one, the question was, what size school do you prefer? This has to be obviously understood in a sequence, right? The users does not answer the question, what size school do you prefer? The user asks something completely different. We do that all the time, right? I just give you an example. I was talking about my presentation, the things I wanted to tell you, and I just opened a parenthesis to talk about this pointer. We do that all the time. For us, it's normal. For Alexa, not that normal, right? She's a machine, unless you account for it. You have to account for that variability in human speech. So this out-of-domain request, what's my favorite school? It's a perfectly legitimate answer, right? You're still talking. You haven't asked what's the score of last Sunday's game. You are still within what's very legitimate to ask. The user is asking something about a school because you have created that personalization, so he or she assumes that Alexa knows exactly about those details. You have to be able to account for those out-of-domain requests. And you do this by being able to have intents inside your interaction model that map exactly to all the possible turns that you want to provide as part of your skill. Now, a couple of best practices here. Be adaptable, be available, personal, and relatable. So let's look at being adaptable. So you have to be adaptable at the way that we speak. I mentioned that already a few times. You have, for example, you have to be concise. You don't have to repeat things that you're supposed to know already. Think about any repeated answer, thing. Let me say something twice. Let me say something twice. Let me say something 3 times, right? So I say the same thing. You say, well, what's this guy doing? And when something like that happens from your skill, that trust, that sense of disbelief is broken. The user will go elsewhere. So be extremely mindful and, of course, test. You have to traverse pretty much your design with human users, so human to human testing your skills. Now, The way that your skill will be used with an utterance. So if we chop down this phrase, as we mentioned, we have a wake word, which could be one of four. It could be Alexa, Echo, Amazon, or computer. And we have a launch phrase, so we have a skill name, and then we have an actual utterance that sends a command into your skill. So that's what's important. I mean, everything here is important, but that part of the utterance is what you will have to parse, what you will receive in the intent into your Lambda function that you will have to match with something ready to receive, some sort of handler in your code that is going to receive this utterance. And the utterance are going to get very different, a lot of difference. You're not driving necessarily a prompt. In some occasion, you might want to drive prompts, explain. Let's say that you're doing a skill for kids. Kids are different in a lot of different ways, but they're different in terms of they need to be told sometimes what to do. There is one skill that is called Kids Court from an Alexa champion, from Adva Levine from Pretzel Labs. This is a phenomenally well-written skill that has won certain challenges in specifically kids, and she drives answers. Let's say, for example, she says how the defendant pleads, because she basically transforms Alexa into Judge Lexi to resolve conflicts between kids. It's great, and it actually works well. Kids love it, and the prompts there are short, concise, and driven. So she will be saying things, or the skill will be saying things, say this if you're guilty, or say this if you have done it, say this if you have not done it. So driving prompts occasionally, but mostly, in this case, you have to be ready to handle things said in different ways. Now, you will be able to figure out that the intent contains the equivalent, for those of you that have written code before, a variable in a skill parlance is called a slot. This is a place it's a placeholder for the values that are going to be relevant for your logic. So in this case, we see that animal sciences, that value will map to a slot called degree that you will use in your logic to do things. And similarly, California will map to a location. You will have to create a dictionary of all the slots, of all the things that are relevant for your logic. And you can do that fairly easy in the console. I would suggest, though, first that you create a dictionary of slots of what you want to gather. Now, let's go back to the variability of human conversation. So something like size can be said in a lot of different ways. So you can use synonyms. You have ways of accounting for synonyms. Very clearly, in the developer's console or in the CLI if you want, you have ways. Developer's console really is just a click and you have a guided prompt to enter synonyms for what you're expecting to have. In this case, you will be able to, it could even be phrases, for example, if they're compound words and so on. But very important, account for that variability. Now, you also have to be personal. As we said before, we all like for Alexa to know who we are, what we like, and the things that are important for us, right? So in this case, notice how this is different. So there is a recognition. There is a recognition of a daily streak. Wow, 5 times in a row, this is great. Or, hey, how was the Colorado State University I asked you to check last time? So those are the things that are technically super easy to do, really, really easy. But as designers, the challenge is that you have to remind, you have to know that that is important. So know that that is important. Keep in mind that we all like that, and that is going to make a huge difference for the engagement rate of your skill. Now, let's all map what we just said about utterances, a situation, into a turn. So this is how you would map the two concepts. The turn, being the foundation of situational design, will map on these sides to all these pieces that compose, that make up a skill. So the utterance is what the user will have said, the context, what Alexa will say, and how you will change the overall context with modifiers following what the user said. Now, you are going to be creating, as I mentioned before, a number of these turns, and you assemble them together into a series of dashboard. And let's check this out. You will map here, conceptually, this is how you would create that daily streak counter, which will then be implemented either by you or by your developers in a way that is also atomic. Try to give to a developer a diagram that you worked enormous amount of time for a month, and that has become really, really complex that you can barely make sense of it. Try to give that to a developer, and then to expect something that is quick, measurable, under the timeline you expected. Conversely, if you give developers turns, it's a great improvement. You can have sprints, you can map this, you can have a modular approach. How many turns you want to give to these developers, and then you can merge them together, but logically they will be merged together by Alexa. So chop, divide and conquer your design with these turns. Now, finally, you have to be relatable. You have to be respecting the anthropomorphic tendency we will have, and likely your users will have when speaking with Alexa. Now, there are things, there are certain best practices, and I'm sharing with you a few. Be concise, be short. Think about even, you would groan if I were, even myself, from a human point of view, and I can even change my speed, my rate of speed in relation to your feedback. Think about reading the whole thing on this side of, versus, welcome back, how would you rate CU? Bolder. So concise, make it dynamic, make it quick. There is something that is called the one breath test. Try to remain everything Alexa said under one breath, and we'll see a video about that later. And then be available. So respect that the user will have the initiative, will have to be enabled to maintain that user initiative, which means that he or she will have to drive that conversation with Alexa. Now, so this is an example. You want to be able to switch topics, over-answer, under-answer, adapt to the user. This is absolutely crucial. And do not forget about those out-of-domain requests, because they're going to happen. Now, the process. So this is a lot of interest in theory, but how do you actually start? So let's assume that you are a storyteller. You have something you want to say. You want something that you want to share. You have a great idea with for a user. You start from the happy path. So you start in writing what you think will be an ideal conversation between a user and Alexa. That's your happy path. You start from the if everything goes well. And then you take that, and then you map these components into the turn. You extrapolate this from a physical script into the turn, because your ultimate goal is that you come up with turns that cover all of the use cases possible. Then you assemble those turns into storyboards. You can organize them in a linear manner. You don't have to worry about the relationship. This is the biggest takeaway. And that this is the part that when developers get it, when storytellers get it, it really changes life. You don't have to worry any longer necessarily about the relationship between turns. This is huge. You just think about one exchange, one turn, and then dynamically, Alexa and the users will take care of that conversation. So this is a really, really big deal. Now, a couple of pointers, a couple of interesting links. We do have a lot of templates that we have prepared with a tool that is called XD. This is, as far as I know, it's a free tool. And if you take note of these links, there are templates that are ready to use with all those turns templates that you can fill and you can assemble together. So, and as well as the Alexa.design is our vanity URL, and there is a lot of useful information there. The specific one for situational design is called Situational Design. Now,
Alexa, open the foodie.
Welcome to the foodie. What's your name?
It's time to stuff your face with delicious food, and I want to help you with that. Please tell me what you'd like to eat, the time of day, what styles of cuisines you prefer, the portion size you want, and whether you have any dietary restrictions.
Breakfast?
Well, it's time to stuff your face with delicious food, and I want to help you with that. Please tell me what you want to eat, the time of day, what styles of cuisine you prefer, the portion size you want small or large, and whether you have any dietary restrictions. It's time to stuff your face with delicious food, and I want to help you with that.
As you can see, evangelists are very, very serious people. So what have we seen there is an example of what you should not be doing. So one breath test. Respect that. Be concise and let the user speak, right? So they're there to have a conversation, not just to hear. Otherwise, they will just listen to the radio. They are there to have a conversation. Now, a few of the best practices that we discussed. So let me just pick a couple of them. Avoid too many choices. Make sure that you drive users to tell you the information that you want from them clearly. So do not do undefined choices. Try to determine an outcome. Make life easier for users in giving you the information that you do want. And then obtain information, ideally, one piece at a time, but I would say also be ready to get information all at once. So there is something that we call one-shot utterance or compound utterances. So these are things that users will give you. They will give you a lot of data. And you have the possibility of checking and analyzing, and you should do so, where your skill fails. Because another very important aspect is that if you want to make your skill speaking natural more and more, you have to adapt to humans. You are not expected to make this natural from the first time around, but you will make them more and more natural by listening where your skill fails. There are tools like the interaction path analysis, the intent history. There is a lot of things that you will see where your skill will bomb, will not be able to match the design that you made to actual users. And that's why we have things like internal beta. You can put your skill to beta. A skill has a lifetime. So you start with the design, you create, you develop the skill, and then you start testing it, and then testing it, and then testing it, and hopefully testing it some more. Then you put it out when you're ready for certification. That is a mandatory step to make your skill public. Before the certification and your own testing, you have the possibility of opening up to beta. There is nothing better than actually testing it with humans, right? And that is really, really important. Now, some of the other things that I wanted to give you. Now, after speaking so much about the situational design and the fact that flows are not necessarily good for the majority of things, I'll give you the opposite. Sometimes you want to have something that is flow-based. Let's say that you're developing an interactive story, any sort of interactive fiction or interactive experience, or something that is fairly linear, and you can account for that, for the overall path. We have created something called the Skill Flow Builder. So this is something that came out mostly out of voice games, and it's an interesting set of tools. The main idea is that you separate content writer from developers, because this is one of the coupling of these two parts of a game design process or of an interactive story process. They might be hard because usually these two sets of people, of professionals, they speak very different languages. In this case, we separate with this framework the content creation from the development by sharing .abc files. So these are files that both are going to be able to use in their respective tools. But the point is that with this tool, you can create flow-based designs and stories. So check it out. It's an actual tool that is free, and it fits very well with the Alexa Skills Kit that we developed recently. Now, one of the final thing I wanted to share with you are some considerations on audio choices. So, you might be familiar with the phrase that one image is worth 1,000 words. It's the same here. The right sound is worth 1,000 words. If one of the ways that you are able to be more concise is with sounds, with different voices, with special effects that convey a lot of meaning with not a lot of words. So the options that you do have, for example, for the voice of Alexa, and this is some of you might even be part of the teams that developed those awesome TTS that we do have, things like Poly and so on. But the fundamental choice that you do have here when you create, when you think about audio options for your skill, are either voice actors, you pay some humans to record what you want. And the benefit of that is that you control, with these actors are going to be able to put emotions into their voice. You're going to be able to score music. You have full control of that experience. Conversely, if you have to change something, you have to call them back. Or if you want to echo something that the user just said, you very likely have now recorded that with the voice acting team. So you do have pros and cons. It's great quality, it's very nice emotional voice potentially, but it's not very elastic. The opposite side of the spectrum, you have Alexa, trusted voice, but obviously not a human voice, but programmatically able to adapt to inputs the user say. There is something in between though, that it offers a little bit of benefits of both worlds. These are TTS, text-to-speech engines. Things like Poly. Poly is an AWS service that now enables your Alexa skill to use up to 27 voices in different languages and locales. So what does that give you? That gives you a synthetic voice that is fully programmable, to which you can actually send parameters. Let me give you an example. Your skill hears something from the user that you want to echo back, let's say to confirm. Do you really want to, or are you ready to make that a reservation from Dansk to Luxembourg? You want to repeat that, right? So if you don't have a programmatic way of doing it with a specific voice actor, it's going to be a problem. But a TTS, like Poly, can still have that atmosphere of a voice, but being programmatically elastic, being able to replicate content. So let's check out a couple of examples here of sound effects and how they convey information. Now, the first one is Escape the Room. It's a lovely voice game created by Gal Chenar. We'll see a little bit more about Gal later on, but let's just hear out how this conveys information with just sound.
What's this old tape player doing here? You wonder to yourself. It looks like there is already a cassette inside, so you go ahead and click play. What would you like to do?
So now here we have a mix and match of Alexa TTS with an MP3 part of the puzzle that actually try to describe that experience, right? This is how you make rich audio experiences, by mixing and matching voice with sound. The second part, the second example is from a skill called wordplay that uses sounds to convey specific right or wrong messages. So here's...
The first letter of your word is T. Please spell out a word to guess next. Is T-H-A-W as your final answer? T-H... Ruh-roh. You have lost a life. 9 lives remaining. Try guessing another word.
And then the final example is how a skill named Angel Investor leverage sounds instead of describing what's happening in the skill. So these are the ways of mixing, of leveraging, and Alexa Skills Kit supports a subset of the SSML specification. So, and it's really easy to mix all of these sounds You can leverage sound libraries. So there is pre-made and pre-built sound libraries. You can modify Alexa way of speaking. You can control the rate. You can control if she whispers or speaks very fast, and so on. A number of different ways.
Welcome to Carfu. You can order a ride or request a fare estimate. Which will it be?
From a development point of view, just being able to mix and match Alexa voice and any sounds you want is just a line of code. Okay? So now a couple of examples of developers that are seeing value in this. And I really suggest, if you're interested in creating skills, to make sure you explore all the sound libraries, all the sound options that you do have at your disposal. It will change a lot the engagement. And then finally, I wanted to share with you a couple of information on how you make money with Alexa. So as we said before, there is virtually for anywhere in the world possibility of creating voice experiences in the places where Alexa speak the language. And the way you make money with Alexa, you can sell physical things, physical goods and services. And then you can integrate with Amazon Pay your skill, and you reduce the friction of users that have to, by not having to ask payment credential. You leverage the payment credential the user authorizes you to use inside the skill. And the way that this is, I want to remind you, this is for physical goods and service. Let's say you're selling Virgin tickets in the UK, like Virgin Trains is doing. You can actually perfect complete the entire transaction on Alexa, getting a ticket using Amazon Pay. Or think about getting flowers. 1-800-Flowers is another example. Second type of way of monetizing your content is something called ISP, in-skills purchasing. So these are three types there are three fundamental ways you can monetize your digital goods and service in this case. First one was physical. This one is digital. Think about that you do have premium content. You're part of a news provider or a content provider. You want to make things available to your users. If you're premium users, you can use in-skills purchasing, the specific type for the subscription. Or let's say that you do have a game that has maybe a low replayability, but it's really compelling. Let's say that you have created an awesome puzzle game, like Escape the Room, for example, and you want to give a one-time purchase to unlock an extra room. That's what you would use. You're selling a digital product. In this case, you're monetizing with a one-time purchase. Or then finally, consumable. Let's say again that you do have, you want to have a business model of giving access to things that you might be consuming in-game. This might be extra life. This might be anything that goes down, a special item that actually gets used inside your voice experience. The way you will monetize will be with consumables. There is also things like agency services or various types of rewards and challenges. But the last one, agency service, we are seeing a very, very dynamic and rich market, nascent market of little firms and studios that are creating skills for others, for brands, for companies. So there is a lot to be doing there. Now, a typical workflow of how you will implement this is here. You will design the product, the description, and the price. Then you will handle the actual conversation on the transactions to Alexa. You don't have to script inside your interaction model all of that. You will just handle it over to Alexa, and she will take care of that transaction for you. You don't even you don't even have to say the price inside your interaction model. You just set it up, you configure it, and then Alexa might even discount it. You will still get the price that you set up, your share of it, right? Now, some of the best practices that you might want to consider, I will highlight the first one, make it relevant. Remember, the utilitarian approach. You have to do something for users. Super, super important. Now, let's wrap this up into actual customer experience between the sound options that you have and the monetization. Let's hear a couple of good examples.
Sire, your wealth has dropped to 0. The emperor will be outraged. The head of the powerful Rizzoli banking family says he can secretly restore your wealth to 50 for a small fee. Would you like to talk to the banker Rizzoli?
So to give you context, that this is a game called Yes, Sire. It's one of my favorite ones. It's super quick. It's good, especially when I'm in traffic. You only have to answer yes or no to a series of questions. There is a steward in a fantasy castle that looks pretty real to me, and it asks you a question. And you only have two resources. You have influence and wealth. Each either one of them goes either to 0 or to 100, you die. So in this case, we see that there is an upsell to go back to set back up the wealth to 50 without any suspension of the game, right? So you are asked, you are at the right time, when you are right there just to go and to beat your own record of doing something specific, there is maintaining the suspension of disbelief, there is a prompt for selling.
The Cardinal can restore your wealth to 50 if you decide to buy his offering. As a Prime member, you save 89 cents. Your price is just $2.19 plus tax. Would you like to buy it?
The first part is what you designed. The second part is what you handle to Alexa, and Alexa will figure out. So she will figure out how to transact with the user. Then, if the purchase is successful, you will receive a certain message. If the purchase is not successful, you receive a different message that you will handle. But this is the difference in this upsell, for example. Now, I will leave you with an example of a very, very accomplished developers. This is a video of Gal Shanar, who is the founder of the firm that created Escape the Room, Escape the Plane, hugely successful skills that have conversions up to 38%. I mean, think about that. So more than 1/3 of people that actually are proposed an upsell or conversion, they do choose to do so. So let's hear from him directly.
Once I knew I could start making some money with skills, I decided to put some more thought into it. Right now I have around 30 Alexa skills, and in total they bring around 200,000 active monthly users. In-skill purchases allow customers to buy a premium experience from within your Alexa skill. It's a really seamless process and expands the possibility of voice. Alexa, open Escape the Room.
Welcome to Escape the Room.
Escape the Room and Escape the Airplane are both escape games. You can play through the game for free, but if you get stuck, you can buy some hints.
What would you like to do?
Give me a hint.
Here is your complimentary hint.
The conversion rates that I'm seeing on my skills are much higher than what you would expect on mobile. Around 34% of players in Escape the Airplane who are offered to purchase the hints opt in to buy them. And on Escape the Room, I'm seeing about 8% of users opt in to buy the hints.
The Garage Hints unlocks a personal escape guide to give you relevant hints. Would you like to buy it?
Yes. Escape the Room has reached over 1,000 reviews and has a 4.6 star average rating. I hope to use monetization and everything else available in Alexa to keep growing my business and reaching more customers.
So with that, I will leave you, but I hope I piqued your interest a little bit, your curiosity. You can build with this today. This is not aspirational. This is not coming in next year or so. You can build these businesses here today, and there is a number of use cases that you can look into it. It is really day one, and there is a lot of opportunities out there to be caught. Feel free to reach out on Twitter or LinkedIn. With that, I thank you very much. Appreciate it.